Alright, friends, welcome to Comics Odyssey one more time. Thanks for joining me. Today we're doing Understanding Comics Week 6. We are getting close to the end, so we're 9 weeks total. This week's chapter is called Show and Tell. The first piece of it is a romp through art history. We'll kind of burn through it pretty quick. The basic theory is that the further back you go in art history, you get more representation across the picture plane. So as we saw in chapter 2, the big triangle there. So he gives an example here of different cave paintings. I don't really have the qualifications to assess the legitimacy of that thesis, so I'm not really going to say much about it other than it sounds right, but perhaps a bit dubious. He discusses how words and pictures further back in time had a closer relationship, where certain pictorials even represented certain words. And his theory is that as time passed, it separated. So the pictorial became specialized in depicting objects, and the linguistic specialized in symbolizing sounds. So we have the kind of a separation of pictorials and language. I don't know, maybe that's like a Tower of Babel thing, who knows. And he says basically this influenced our way of thinking, where we started to think of those things as separate things. And then he's suggesting that around the 19th, 20th century, the words in the pictures started to move back towards each other, such as in pop art, commercial art. Their relationships started to become more intertwined, and he's suggesting that maybe that's why we saw a rise of the comics medium. But really what's interesting to me here is more the mechanics at this point, and less the theory. He's discussing the different types of relationships that words and pictures can have in a comic. So this, for us who do make comic books, this is of special interest. So we'll go through the different possible relationships of words and pictures. The first is word specific. That is a panel wherein the words could be there by themselves and you'd lose no meaning. So let me just take something here. So if you cover up the image here, Judy gave me her keys and smiled. We just have an image of Judy smiling, which really doesn't add too much to the meaning to the panel there. We have some words describing the United States Constitution when it was put into effect, and just a drawing of somebody writing the Constitution. But it really is not much of a support to the words. So it's a little bit more like picture book type of thing. And then the picture specific combination is the one where the words don't really do much to change the meaning of the image, other than add to the atmosphere or just create like a soundtrack or it's quite direct. So, for instance, somebody throwing a bowling ball, getting a strike, someone just saying, "He did it." The words here don't add much other than implying there's someone else there. An image, soap opera kind of scene, a man and a woman kissing, and we see them making kissing noises. It really doesn't change the sequence at all. Here it's when the do a specific is when the words and the pictures do essentially the same thing. And this comes up a lot in Silver Age comics, where the caption will say what the image does, and so will the characters. So it's kind of a bit of an awkward reading experience to read the characters describing what you can see they're doing. That's very strange. Reads almost like a musical or something. And here we get the more common, I feel, type of word picture combination called additive, where both the image and the words need to be there in order to get all of the information. If you take one out, then you really cut down on the meaning. So this character holding his head in pain, and then says that his head feels smashed like a smashed pumpkin. So it really adds detail to what's going on. A rocket ship with a caption that says, "Is this the same Jupiter of my youth?" So without that, you just have a rocket ship and a planet. But with the pictures there, with the words there, it really kind of adds to the story. So we do see this quite a bit in comics. Parallel combinations are when the words and the pictures really don't seem to be working at odds. They're really not relating at all. And you do see that there's a current writer, Tom King, who does that. And it's a very bizarre decision. It really doesn't work, I think. He'll just put song lyrics over some scenes. I don't know if he thinks it's evoking like a soundtrack for a movie, but it's really jarring, or some people will do two different sets of dialogue over some action sequences, and it may not be exactly a parallel combination, but it's very clunky to read. You have to read one whole set of dialogue first and then reread the page with another set of dialogue. It's very strange. This type of thing, I don't like it. Montage is when the words and the pictures are integrated into one another. Steve Ditko did that in Mr. A. I did a video on that. And then the most common is interdependent, when the words and the pictures really completely in sync. And if you take one out, you really don't have the information you need. And like, you take one out, completely changes the character of the panel. For instance, this smelly guy, without the words, you would just see him as a smelly guy, but there's a dialogue bubble that says, "Does this guy look like a CEO to you?" So then we have like some story meaning, right? And he discusses how, it's a spectrum. It's not always, black and white. There is a balance to strike, and sometimes the words do more of the heavy lifting than the pictures, or vice versa. This would be a good way for writers and artists that are considering working together. They could do just like a scene or two instead of a whole story, and just kind of see how their respective crafts mesh together, and if they're well balanced, just to see how the words and the pictures, because I do tend to be more of a pictures guy, because I'm a little bit more of an artist, and I draw the whole story without really much dialogue or narration written ahead of time, whereas a writer is going to probably write most of the dialogue up front. So you get some comics that are a little bit more writing heavy, the others more visual, right? But I tend to think, I give myself a point because comics are a visual medium. The Marvel method, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko developed, I think is a really good balance of all that, where the writer will give an outline of the plot and the basic story beats to the artist, who will then draw it and then give it back to the writer, who will then add dialogue to it, so that the dialogue is congruous with the visuals on the page. Here he gives a really good exercise on how the relationship between words and pictures can really change the tenor of a scene. So he draws out a scene here of a woman walking in the rain, getting some ice cream, walking back in the rain, and then eating some ice cream. So seems to be she went for a walk to get some ice cream. But then he suggests that the simple panel of a woman walking down the street can be really punched up by adding a caption that says, "I may be alone like this for a very long time." So it really changes, it really specifies the mood of that scene, right? For instance, if you put the scene with the ice cream and you put a caption that says, "This is the way the world ends," is a completely different flavor, right? Then he rewrites that whole scene using only narrative captions, right? But then he's saying, if that's the case, then the art is freed up to do a lot more and can really be more explorative, right? For instance, I crossed the street to the convenience store. The rain soaked into my boots is very descriptive, but then that lets the artist doesn't have to draw an establishing shot. The artist can zoom in on a detail of just rain falling on the street. Yeah, so there's a lot of potential either way when the art's doing the heavy lifting or the words are. So it's all about making it dance together, right? Yeah. So that's week 6 of Understanding Comics. Chapter 7 is going to be the 6 steps. This is going to be really interesting. It's about the creative process. So I think you'll really enjoy this one. Thanks for joining one more time. I appreciate your attention and patronage. See you in the next one.